Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Chris Beers. Our top stories. President Trump addressing graduates at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. More on the president's remarks and his shifting defense policy. The Four-Leaf Air Show is underway at Jones Beach in New York. NTD's Sean Marshall is on the ground at the traditional Memorial Day event. The One Big Beautiful Bill moves one step closer to getting passed. Our panel explains how the bill's cuts to taxes and public assistance could affect you. One of New York City's top pickleball coaches shows us the best ways to play and enjoy the popular sport and in style. Plus, a maker of pickleball gear that's designed especially for women shares her tips. As drowning deaths among children increase, one Olympic gold medal swimmer is stepping up to help prevent them.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump addressed graduates at West Point U.S. Military Academy, where the next generation of Army leaders is educated. He praised them for choosing a life of service and touted what he calls a golden age of the nation and the changes he's bringing to the military. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from West Point.
Powerful army the world has ever known.
Addressing over 1,000 graduate and cadets at the U.S. Military Academy, the commander-in-chief stresses his peace through strength defense policy and doubles down on his push to get rid of DEI in the military.
The job of the U.S. Armed Forces is not to host drag shows, to transform foreign cultures, but to spread democracy to everybody around the world at the point of a gun.
President Trump in his first military commencement address since returning to office and calls for a shift from foreign wars to defending the homeland.
Gone are the days where defending every nation but our own was the primary thought. We are putting America first. A central purpose of our military is to protect our own borders.
And on inside the U.S. military,
there will be no more critical race theory or transgender for everybody forced onto our brave men and women in uniform.
In response to President Trump's order rolling back DEI programs, West Point has disbanded a dozen cadet clubs centered on gender, race, and sexuality. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has also ordered service academies like West Point to base admissions only on merit, not race, sex, or ethnicity.
We're focusing our military on its core mission: crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies.
The commander-in-chief also leaves the new second lieutenants with his own advice. Take the path you love, take risks, think big, and always hold on to culture and tradition.
Through every challenge and every battle, you'll stand strong, you'll work hard, you'll stay tough, and you will fight, 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 and win, win, win.
After the ceremony, Trump says he'll go back to work on Russia and China. And next Monday, Trump will participate in Memorial Day services at the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. That's to honor veterans and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Reporting from West Point, New York, Iris Tao, NTD News.
It's a Memorial Day tradition. The Four-Leaf Air Show is underway at Jones Beach in New York, and NTD's Sean Marshall is there to fill us in on the high-flying action. Sean, it's good to see you. What do you have for us? Do we have you, Sean? All right, moving on. We'll probably come back to Sean a bit later. On Memorial Day, Americans across the country honor the sacrifice made by service members by going to cemeteries and monuments. But now there's a push to bring their stories closer to home. Here's more.
I'm walking towards the grave of Ellen Ainsworth. She's buried here in Plot C.
The final resting place of U.S. Army Second Lieutenant Ellen Ainsworth is far from her hometown of Glenwood City, Wisconsin. But the World War II Army nurse still draws visitors at Cicely Rome American Cemetery.
So as we take this sand and rub this across her name, for a family member, it creates this physical and emotional connection.
Cicely Rome American Cemetery, about 40 miles south of Rome, is one of the cemeteries administered by the American Battle Monuments Commission, which maintains monuments to more than 200,000 of the nation's fallen heroes outside of the United States, including the sites like Paris and Normandy.
They are powerful sites of remembrance that are an incredible place to visit and honor the dead of World War I and World War II. However, our audience is the American people, and many Americans will never get the chance to physically journey to one of our cemeteries.
The American Battle Monuments Commission has now partnered with the Department of Veterans Affairs to bring the stories of these service members closer to home, using the VA's Digital Veterans Legacy Memorial.
These American heroes deserve to be remembered and their stories to be told just as any other veteran or service member.
Launched in 2019, VA Program Officer James LaPaglia says the digital database is intended to make the stories of every U.S. veteran more interactive, more vivid, and more accessible.
We wanted to take the cemetery experience beyond the confines of a gate or a cemetery wall.
With their data, the VA has created online memorial pages for more than 10 million U.S. service members in VA and VA grant-funded cemeteries, Department of Defense cemeteries like Arlington National Cemetery, and other sites like the cemeteries abroad. Family members, friends, and the public can submit photos and mementos to populate each page and share a veteran's story. Like Ainsworth's, which ended in February 1944 in Italy. While her hospital was under attack, she moved her patients to safety and died from her own injuries days later. A story Mark Ireland, superintendent of the Cicely Rome American Cemetery, says still inspires.
That idea of, fighting till the very end, not giving up.
And is just one of many to be honored by generations to come.
Coming back to the Four-Leaf Air Show underway right now at Jones Beach in New York. NTD's Sean Marshall is there. Sean, what do you have for us?
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. It's an honor to see America's elite showing us their dedication to protecting the country. This year's Memorial Day headliners include the United States Air Force Thunderbirds, showcasing their precision flying skills, and the Army Golden Knights parachute team is dropping in for their 17th appearance. This is one of the most popular events in the area, with more than 200,000 people expected to be in attendance. It's sure to be a pretty entertaining day today. And as you can see, the crowd is huge.
Awesome.
Back to you, Chris.
Sean, it looks like so much fun. I mean, I've been to so many of these with my family when I was growing up, and I just remember the tremendous noise, but the amazement at these flying vehicles just crashing through the air. All right, Sean Marshall, thank you. Coming up, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it's called, passes the House and heads to the Senate. What will it mean for the people? Our panel joins us to explain after the break. Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it. thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives. You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S. That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift. I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome back to NTD. The House narrowly passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act this week. It now moves on to the Senate. All Democrats and 2 Republicans rejected the bill in a 215 to 214 vote. The bill extends the tax cuts implemented during President Donald Trump's first term. It institutes work requirements for Medicaid and SNAP recipients, and it also includes energy, immigration, and defense measures. President Trump says, quote, "This is arguably the most significant piece of legislation that will ever be signed in the history of our country." House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries calls it the one big ugly bill, condemning its cuts to public assistance programs and labeling it a handout for the rich. Our panel joins us for analysis. We have Richard Stern, Director of Budget Policy at the Heritage Foundation, and Hadley Manning, Executive Vice President at the Steamboat Institute. Thank you both so much for joining us. Richard, your take on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it's officially named.
Oh, I think this is certainly a down payment on getting back to the pro-growth economy that the president talked about. You know, it's important to remember here that most of the tax cuts are good for most Americans. It's doubling the standard deduction, the child tax credit, but it's also tax cuts that are really good for businesses, especially small businesses, to be able to expand their operations, to hire more Americans, to produce more of the goods and services that we all use and enjoy. And yes, it's cutting a lot of wasteful spending that was fueling the left and paying people to not work. So overall, there's still a lot of issues. There's a lot of giveaways in the bill. Deficits are a concern, but mostly the core of it is getting back to a pro-growth economy and getting government out of the way, letting you keep the money that you've earned.
And Hadley, what is your take on the core of this GOP tax bill?
I think this bill is an opportunity to revisit the conversation about the federal government's role, and where our spending goes is not just a reflection of what's important to us as a nation, but it should also be a reflection of what exactly the primary roles of the federal government are. So starting with national defense, immigration control, homeland security, these are things that get bolstered by this bill. On the tax side, I agree. However, I think it's important to keep in mind that without extending the 2017 tax cuts from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, most Americans would see a tax increase this year. So some of the jargon that we use in Washington around tax bills and spending bills isn't the same as the way that Americans would use these terms colloquially. This isn't necessarily a big tax cut, and it's an extension of tax cuts from 2017 to ward off tax increases that most Americans would see. Now, there are a couple of tax provisions, like the huge increase in the state and local tax cap, that do, I think, create political and policy problems for the GOP. I'll be curious to see what the Senate does, if the Senate makes some changes to some of these provisions. But of course, we're going to have until July 4th to see changes from the Senate back to the House and ultimately to President Trump's desk.
And I'd like to get to what the Senate could do with this. But first, Richard, what will this bill mean for small businesses in America? I mean, you touched on it briefly. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, small businesses employ half of the nation's workforce.
Absolutely. So I think two things I'll highlight there. So obviously, a lot of the things that we're talking about here about extending the tax cuts are good for them. But I want to highlight two provisions in particular. So, right now for all businesses, but this is especially acute for small businesses, when you spend money to build more structures, to buy more equipment, be it ovens in a restaurant or blast furnaces in a steel mill, you actually pay taxes on the money you spend to buy the equipment and to expand your operations. We treat that as money you've got sitting around at a bank, when in reality, it's sitting in a piece of factory equipment. So part of what the bill does is it gets rid of that obvious double taxation where we're taxing more heavily the construction of new resources to hire people and to produce things. The other is the extension of things that are specifically for small businesses that bring their tax rates down on average to where corporate tax rates are. And so without those provisions, then you're double taxing investments in growth, and you're taxing small businesses, not always, but most of the time, at higher rates than you're charging corporations. So those are two big areas where the bill continues what we've been doing to keep those taxes low for businesses.
And it'll matter for small business that makes up about 40 or something percent of the GDP. Next, Hadley, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that 7.6 million people who rely on Medicaid would go uninsured if this bill passes. Should these people be concerned about losing their medical coverage?
The bill primarily affects Medicaid through adding work requirements. And it's not strictly a work requirement, but it means if you're caregiving, if you're volunteering, if you're looking for work, then you can meet the work requirement in Medicaid. This is a pro-work incentive in the Medicaid program. If I had my druthers, we would have gone further with Medicaid reform in this bill. You can't get everything you want, but there is a provision in 2014 when the Obamacare or Affordable Care Act expansion of Medicaid started. It started funding states at about 90% to add new able-bodied, working-age, childless adults to the program. This was a huge mistake because it created a dual system within Medicaid where traditional Medicaid enrollees like pregnant women, like children, like people with disabilities, get a lower match rate from the federal government. So as I said at the outset, I believe that the changes in spending as well as taxes in this big, beautiful bill are an effort to get back to the federal government's primary role. This will ask states to step in and make changes to their Medicaid programs as they see fit. Of course, we remember the policing powers that have to do with health and safety of citizens, healthcare. Those things should be primarily handled at the state level. So for people who are on Medicaid who might be worried about the work requirement in this, yes, there's options here. They could go out and fulfill the work requirement. They could petition for changes at the state level in terms of what's available to them. They could also look to private healthcare coverage, and there are things that states can do to subsidize private healthcare coverage. And if you ask anyone on Medicaid if they'd rather have Medicaid or private health insurance, they'd choose the latter. So I hope that our government will work to expand access to the private health insurance. That should be the first option for many people who are working age, able-bodied, childless adults.
Richard, I want to look at one of the more contentious parts of this bill. Moody's ratings just downgraded the U.S. for the first time since 1917 due to the country's rising debt and insufficient political action to address it. Now, this bill adds to the deficit, increasing the debt, basically validating what Moody's is concerned about. Could America see another downgrade going forward, given that?
So absolutely. I've been on before, talked about exactly how crushing the debt and deficit are. I want to remind everyone the federal debt right now is already $273,000 per American household. It's your second mortgage on a home you'll never see. And of course, an enormous amount of the last generation or so of the sense of economic malaise has actually come from the economic burdens of that debt and deficit. And so there is that real concern about this bill. But, to pick up on the conversation here, part of the concern about that is the giveaways in the bill. And part of it is where there's more spending we should have gone after, we didn't go after. So all of those extra Medicaid reforms that should have been done that aren't in the bill increase government spending. We gave $400 and maybe even close to $500 billion away in the bill to the SALT caucus. And again, the state and local tax deduction is a subsidy for high tax individuals in high tax blue states. It's actually a subsidy to state governments who turn around and use that money to fund transitioning and abortion, among other things. So, that's enormous amount of what the Senate could go after is get rid of those handouts that are really just subsidies, go after government spending, and really bring down the deficits that way. Milton Friedman had said, and I think he was right about this, that the burden of government is the spending. When the government spends $1, it commits to steal that money, either through inflation and high interest rates, through deficits, or through taxation. It's the spending we've got to deal with.
All right, let's move on to another key update this week, Trump's recommendation of 50% tariffs on the European Union. Hadley, if that goes into effect, our allies would face a higher tariff than China, which currently faces 30% tariffs. Talk to us about Trump's posture towards authoritarian leaders like Xi Jinping over traditional U.S. allies.
Well, the Trump administration certainly is making a big bet when it comes to their trade policy. They're betting that in the long term, they can renegotiate what President Trump sees as a better deal for America in terms of our trade deficits abroad. I'm curious to see how this will play out. Of course, in the short run, we can expect a lot of disruption here, as we saw in the stock market after so-called Liberation Day. I think Americans are bracing for these changes. I think our partners abroad are right to be concerned about changes that would happen through tariff policy or other changes to our foreign policy. And this is something that only time will tell. Unfortunately, President Trump doesn't have that much time in America and probably in other countries. It seems that we're constantly in a campaign cycle. And now that his first 100 days are over, already members of his administration and members of his party here in the United States are thinking ahead to the 2026 midterm elections. And if the economy doesn't stay healthy, or if there are disruptions to the economy in the short run that are so significant for Americans looking at their pensions, looking at their retirement accounts, looking at the economy more broadly, especially inflation rates that affect people in the middle class, this will be a political problem for President Trump. So I believe he's acting now because he feels like this is the longest time frame he has before the next election. But the reality is the next election is always just around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're pretty much in the election cycle for the midterms. Richard, what could potential 50% tariffs on the EU mean for American wine drinkers, cheese eaters? Will the EU producers raise tariffs, raise their prices, or just eat these tariffs, you think?
Well, they certainly could. But, I'll give you one other thing about this. It's not just wine and cheese we import. It's also car parts that go to American car manufacturers that produce final cars here, but use gears and springs and things like that that'll come from Germany and from across the EU. So, I think to pick up on what Hadley was saying there, look, President Trump has made a really good play here broadly to try to negotiate better trade deals, to deal with abuses. The U.S. Trade Rep published a report not that long ago that a good $200 to $600 billion of income is stolen from Americans every year by IP violations abroad. However, it's important that these tariffs are really handled in a strategic manner. What we've seen is that the administration is at least two camps, a camp that really wants to deal with these abuses, get better trade deals, and then a camp that seems to be myopically and frankly foolishly focused on the trade deficit, much to the benefit of the trade abusers. And so it's a little unclear at the moment what this strategy is about. But, I'd kind of the last thing I'd say here, just to highlight, is there's some concerns, because if you think through the tariffs that were put on China, for example, all of the industries that we've talked about, that Trump has talked about, like pharmaceuticals, where we want to bring the supply lines back here, they gave 0% tariff carve-outs to. So, there's still this thing going on where if you've got the largest lobbying arm in D.C., you get the lowest tariff rate. And that undercuts the real play here to make negotiations that'll be good for American families and workers in the long run. So, I'm cautiously optimistic. I certainly believe the president's a great negotiator, but, there's a whole trade team there that comes together on the fine details of how these things come together.
All right. Richard Stern, Director of Budget Policy at the Heritage Foundation, and Hadley Manning, Executive Vice President at the Steamboat Institute. Thank you both so much for joining us and breaking down this big, beautiful bill.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up, President Trump signing a bill to make it illegal to publish intimate images without a person's consent. What this means for victims of this type of crime. And do you feel like conversations often turn into battles? Try reflective listening. We speak with a clinical psychologist for tips on having more peaceful conversations that get to the heart of issues, right here on NTD.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I've felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gone Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Hurry in and shop Mathis Home today during the Monumental Savings Event for deals in every department. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Come and see the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms at the lowest prices ever. You can get it all in stock with fast and free delivery. Even an incredible selection of patio and outdoor furniture so you can enjoy every part of your home. For the best service, selection, and value, don't miss out on the Monumental Savings Event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Welcome back. President Trump signed the Take It Down Act on Monday in the White House Rose Garden. He was joined by First Lady Melania Trump, who championed the bill. For analysis on the bill, NTD's Tiffany Meyer speaks to Melissa Henson, who attended the signing. She's the vice president of the Parents Television and Media Council.
What does the signing of the Take It Down Act mean for your organization and victims of this type of crime?
Yeah, so our organization is focused on helping to create a safe and sound media environment for children and for families. And I think our bills, our laws have not kept pace with the rate of change and the rate of technological advance. And so we are seeing problems in the online world that nobody could have anticipated 20, 30 years ago. And children are becoming victims of online sextortion scams. They're becoming victims of AI-generated pornography. They're becoming victims of exploitation, a whole host of problems. And we really need to be moving quickly to address some of these problems in the legal sphere, since the tech companies have done nothing to address them on their own.
Expanding on that, give us a sense. What's the scope of this new law? What issue does it tackle at the heart?
Yeah, I think what it is primarily designed to do is criminalize the distribution of so-called revenge porn. And so what we have seen over the years, for example, if a young man and a young lady have a bad breakup, maybe during the relationship, one of them may have sent intimate photos to their partner. And then after a bad breakup, maybe the partner decides to get revenge by distributing those intimate photos. So this criminalizes that behavior. But what we are also seeing is, for example, there was a middle school out in California where people were taking faces, like out of the yearbook, and imposing those faces on AI-generated pornographic images. And this would also criminalize that kind of behavior.
And back to your earlier point, this is impacting all sectors of society, including, celebrities like Taylor Swift. It's adding to concerns that this is a growing problem, especially as AI becomes more readily available to the general public.
Yeah, absolutely. And because AI is getting more sophisticated with every passing day, it is going to get harder and harder for us to be able to distinguish real photos from AI-generated images. And so you could very quickly destroy somebody's reputation. You could destroy somebody's career, their livelihood, by creating these AI-generated images. And so, I've even heard stories about school teachers, for example. Students angry at a teacher, and so they use these deep fake pornographic images to try to smear a teacher's good name and reputation, destroy their career, destroy their ability to be able to teach. This will save untold young lives, but also untold families from ruin and from destructive behavior from bad actors that are out there.
And zooming out a bit here, this is a major policy win for the First Lady as she championed the bill. How significant is it to have someone like Melania Trump as the First Lady putting a spotlight on this issue and protecting children?
Yeah, it has been so fantastic to see her really spearheading the effort to get this bill passed. We were greatly encouraged to hear it mentioned specifically during the State of the Union address earlier this year. That gave us great hope that it would, in fact, pass both chambers and be signed into law. And indeed, that's what happened. And I think due large part to the fact that the First Lady championed this particular piece of legislation.
And to your point, it is also a rare moment of bipartisanship on the Hill. Given that those who violate this law now would face criminal penalties at the federal level, how big of a deterrent will this be?
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be a significant deterrent. You can slap somebody's wrist only so many times before they recognize that no real consequences are going to follow. But the fact that this is now criminal behavior, that it is potentially a felony, I think people will take it much, much more seriously.
Melissa Henson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you ever feel like you're not being heard? Or perhaps on some tougher issues, it can be hard to hear other people out. In tense situations, sometimes the smallest tweak can make the biggest difference between spiraling and soaring. Luckily, there's plenty we can do to set our footing straight in difficult conversations. NTD's Stephania Cox spoke with Chloe Carmichael, a licensed clinical psychologist and USA Today best-selling author for Insight.
Today, we're looking at reflective listening, among other techniques. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. The technique is featured in the book, Can I Say That?, which is about, free speech conversations. It can be hard to have those conversations. And so with reflective listening, what we do is, person A says their piece for approximately 1 minute, and then the other person B, just simply repeats it back, says, look, if I heard you believe X, Y, and Z. Is that right? How did I get it right? And person A either confirms or clarifies. And then they do it till person B can really just recapitulate person A very nicely. And then they switch roles. And this is really helpful because in psychology, we can have something called hot cognition when we get really upset or defensive, and we actually don't think clearly or even hear as clearly. And we can also have basically emotional stereotypes. So if somebody's talking about a political topic and I have a stereotype of how people who think that way are like, my brain starts taking too many emotional shortcuts, and then I'm not really hearing what they're saying. So the reflective listening technique makes sure that we actually really hear each other instead of talking past one another.
Yeah, it can be quite revealing to get that confirmation back or not. and understand really what took place there in that interchange. Now, you've said reflective.
Yes, it's deceptively simple. It sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how often person A says something and then person B repeats something back, and it's really not what person A said. So it can be a very simple but helpful technique.
And something you can really use to delve deep with then, if there does need some course correction, for example, that could have really led to some other consequences, which is what this all comes down to. What's the outcome here? And you've said that reflective listening is a technique borrowed from couples therapy. Are there any other considerations for communicating with different demographics, young people, the elderly, colleagues?
Yes, definitely. And as you said, it was borrowed from couples therapy, but basically I think it helps really in any type of heated argument. And really what it does too is it conveys respect as well. It shows the person that you're really listening, not just to respond, but to make sure that you heard them. Then it's great too because people are not competing for airtime. So across demographics, whether, as you said, you're talking about an elderly person and a young person, or people from, actually, frankly, the more disparate the demographics get, the more important it is to make sure that we're really understanding, because we might have different vernaculars or different ways of expressing ourselves. And sometimes too, people feel like they're only half listening because they're looking for their chance to jump in and make sure that they get their airtime. And the reflective listening technique kind of takes that away by providing a structure. It takes the temperature down a notch because everyone knows that they will get a chance to say their piece and that they will be heard.
And I guess it's also something that you could potentially just instigate without announcing it or setting up that reciprocal aspect, and it could still work in a more fluid way.
Yes, I think you've read an advanced copy of my book, because there's actually a whole section on what I call listening resiliently, because it's such an important part of free speech. When I wrote the book, Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly, I wanted people to know that it's not just about speaking up, it is also about listening. And so you're absolutely right. If it feels awkward to say, hey, let's do this listening exercise, if you just silently decide that you're going to listen and then repeat back, hey, what I heard you say is X, Y, and Z. Did I get that right? The other person, I can almost guarantee you, is going to be so disarmed that when you finally had the floor to speak, instead of using it to say your piece, you just said, hey, well, I want to make sure I heard you right. Is that correct? And then when they say yes, you can say, okay, thanks. Would you like to hear what I think about the topic? And very few people will say no. So you're absolutely right. You can kind of breadcrumb them into doing the exercise without formally announcing it.
Right, good to know. Now, one common barrier in communication is when the parties themselves are not clear so much on what they think or what they want to communicate, which could lead to reactivity or reticence. And as they say, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. So what do you suggest in this kind of situation?
Well, actually, I would really applaud people that are willing to acknowledge that maybe there's some nuance and that they don't fully know their position yet. So reflective listening works great with that as well. I mean, you could say something and someone could reflect back. It sounds like you're saying that you see the position from both sides and that, you actually see some gray space in between, and it's hard to land firmly on one particular opinion at this moment. And that's actually a very liberating place to be. So I congratulate you on that awareness. I'm so glad you brought that up, because, not having everybody having to be an expert on every topic, right, is one of our difficulties right now. So if people are able to just say, embrace some ambiguity and say, I kind of see both sides of it, I actually think that's a great step forward.
And so much of life right now is so fast-paced, and especially when stakes are high, it's often at a time when time is tight and you're trying to communicate and make decisions. What's some aspects that can help make that particularly effective in such a situation?
Sure. So it's a funny one because the reflective listening technique, it sounds as if, oh, gee, this is going to take a whole bunch of time. We don't have time to do this exercise. It takes more time to communicate once you've escalated into an argument and people are talking past each other and they're not even really hearing each other. It's like a stitch in time saves 9 type of situation. So, I would just encourage people that the moment that they feel things are starting to get heated, because of what I mentioned about this hot cognition aspect, that when you realize that that's happening, instead of becoming self-critical, congratulate yourself on the awareness that, you're getting heated, and just say to the other person even, I feel like we're both, maybe getting a little heated. I am. Let's try this little exercise, from the book, Can I Say That by Dr. Chloe, where I'll say my piece, you reflect it back, and then you say your piece and I'll reflect it back, or maybe even let the other person start by sharing. And believe it or not, it can actually really be a time saver in the long run, because people waste so much time on arguments where they're not even understanding each other.
It seems even suggesting such an exercise could be an offer of goodwill and start to set things straight from the outset. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. Great to speak with you. And with that book, Can I Say That, coming out?
Yes, it's at freespeechtoday.com. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Next, one of New York City's top pickleball coaches shows us the best ways to play and enjoy the popular sport, and in style. Plus, a maker of pickleball gear that's designed especially for women shares her tips. And as drowning deaths among children increase, one Olympic gold medal swimmer is stepping up to help prevent them. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Welcome back. Warmer days are here finally. So it's the perfect time to get outside and get moving. And what better way than with a team sport that's easy to learn and fun to play? Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. By some estimates, participation is increasing by more than 20% annually. NTD's Stephania Cox and Carrie Dunst sat down with Karen Teft, the founder of the Pretty Pickleball Company, for insights.
We are joined in studio by Karen Teft, the founder of the Pretty Pickleball Company. And what a beautiful time of year to get outside and start playing pickleball, I say.
That's right. It's a team sport. It's easy to learn, and it's one of the fastest growing sports, actually.
Yeah, that is so true. And Karen, welcome. Here is one of your beautiful products. Just gorgeous. Tell us more about the line you've developed.
So we have a line called the Royal Collection, and it is princess inspired. We wanted to bring something beautiful and high performance to the sport. So we couldn't find anything when I was actually looking for a paddle, and that's one of the reasons why we decided to go with the concept.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're so elaborate and they're themed well. I mean, it's in a book. How did you come up with this themed concept, and what made you think, like, I'm going to bring this to market?
Well, in 2023, when I first started playing pickleball, and I was looking for a paddle for myself, there really wasn't much that had color to it. And if it did, it was like these weird 80s graphics. So while we were developing them and coming up with different designs, we started seeing other pretty paddles coming onto the market. So we wanted to differentiate ourselves. My daughter suggested, why don't we lean into the princess line?
Of course.
And, you know, I live in the Orlando area. Our kids grew up in the theme parks. So it was very natural and very comfortable for us. So my daughter actually put some designs on paper. We found a beautiful artist. And then we designed what we think is a beautiful paddle that plays just as good as it looks. So we made sure that it was a high quality performance paddle.
Yeah, it feels that way. And they're incredibly light, which was quite surprising for how substantial they kind of look as well. But, you know, so these are clearly designed for ladies out there wanting to get out on the court. Tell us about your inspiration behind what you see as the benefits of pickleball for women and more generally.
So for everybody, it's a wonderful sport just to get active. There's really not any barrier to entrance. It doesn't matter if you consider yourself athletic or not. You can get out there and play and have fun. The community is so welcoming. Somebody is always on the court who's willing to teach you. But it's a wonderful way, especially for women. As your kids grow up, it's harder and harder to make friendship connections, and pickleball is a wonderful way to do that. It's great for stress relief, for just a way to be active. So it's really a fun thing to just go out there and do. I always encourage all women to just go out there. Even if you don't know how to play, head over to the court. Even if you don't have a paddle, people usually have 3 or 4 in their bag. And there's always going to be someone on the court who's willing to teach you how.
Pickleball has taken off in recent years. What's driving the surge in popularity? And for someone who's never played before, is it easy to pick up? NTD's Stephania Cox and Carrie Dunst speak with Amanda Thurm, one of NYC's top pickleball coaches, for some quick tips.
In that first lesson where you learn, what is it that you're able to do in such a short amount of time that gets somebody active and actually into the sport?
Well, what's nice is that it's a smaller court, which makes it a little bit easier, and it's a wiffle ball. Also makes it a little bit slower, so you're able to get the hang of it. And also, there are only 3 rules that you need to learn for pickleball, which makes it pretty easy and more manageable. So the first rule is the serving rule. The serve has to be underhanded, so it's this low to high motion, and you just hit it into the diagonal big box on the other side of the court. So that's the first rule. The second rule is something called the 2 bounce rule. All that means is that the ball has to bounce once on either side of the court before you're allowed to hit it out of the air. So that serve has to bounce, and when they send that back, that return has to bounce. So that's the second rule. And
No
then
volleying. You gotta let it bounce.
You got just those first two, and then
Okay.
there's one other time you have to let it bounce, which is this area that's up towards the front of the net. It's called the kitchen.
Okay.
And the kitchen, in that area, you just have to let the ball bounce before you can hit it. And those are the 3 rules.
Sounds pretty simple. Let's get started. Show us the moves. How do we do it?
Sure. So the first is how you hold the paddle.
Okay.
So the paddle, you're going to hold it as if you were holding a hammer. So if you were just hammering a nail right here. We like this because it lets you do both a forehand on this side and a backhand on this side. Just like that.
Okay.
Then also, if squeezing it as tightly as you can is a 10, or about to fall out of your hand is a 1, you probably want to be around a 3 or a 4.
Oh,
You don't
okay,
want to
loose.
hold it too tightly.
Very loose.
Almost as if you were holding an ice cream cone and you don't want to crush it.
I've done that many times.
Now, the next thing we'll talk about is our ready position. You want to be ready in case the ball's coming towards you. So here we want to have a stance where we're about shoulder width apart, on our toes. We're going to have our paddle up and our elbows in. So we're just ready for that ball coming at us.
So both hands.
Both hands here, just ready for it. And then if the ball comes over to this side, we're going to do our forehand volley. This is just like you're hitting a high five, just giving a high five. And then if the ball comes over to our left side, going to put our paddle up here. It's just as if you're doing a fist bump. Just a nice little touch there. And the last thing I'll add is this paddle here has a sweet spot in the middle, so you always want to try and hit it in the middle of your paddle.
And with these pretty paddles, I mean, you can really find the sweet spot quite easily.
Yes.
Nice one. Okay, so is there any special gear that you need to get going?
Well, you definitely need a pickleball paddle, like these beautiful ones, a pickleball, which you have right there.
Yeah.
And I also recommend getting some good court shoes. So it's either pickleball shoes or tennis hard court shoes. They're really helpful because they allow you to move side to side really easily, which is a big part of pickleball.
Yeah.
Now, if someone's just getting started, what tips do you have so that they, maybe don't take on too much too fast, and they don't get intimidated by, playing the wrong, competition? What can someone do to kind of really set themselves up to enjoy the sport this summer?
I would just say relax and have fun. It is really easy to pick up, so just go out there and just try it. I promise you will have a lot of fun.
Oh, I want to see us throwing a little bit of the ball. Can you guys try?
Yeah, we can try.
Okay. All right. Okay, there's the technique. Nice. And so you do all this coaching. You've said you've coached about 1,000 people already here in New York City?
Here in New York City,
okay,
yes.
tell us more about you.
Sure. So I'm a pickleball coach here in New York. I teach intro, beginner, and intermediate, both private lessons and clinics all over the city. And I absolutely love teaching. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, my Instagram is amanda.pickleball. That's amanda.pickleball. Reach out. I'd love to teach you.
Amanda.pickleball. That's perfect. Now, it would seem that New York City, basketball, not a lot of space for court sports. How popular is pickleball in New York City?
Is getting so popular. Just a couple years ago, we didn't even have any permanent courts in the city, and now they've popped up everywhere because it's gotten so popular.
Amazing. Oh gosh. Well, this has been quite insightful. I feel a bit more ready
to
get
do
going.
it?
I mean, I've gone and observed pickleball players. I found my local court, but I haven't quite gotten out there yet.
You'll have to come by for a lesson.
I know. I should. Thank you so much.
You're so
All
welcome.
right. Yeah, thank you so much.
Next, drowning. It's the #1 cause of death for children aged 1 to 4, according to the CDC. Last year, the agency said those deaths were on the rise. The trend has one Olympic gold medal swimmer trying to make a difference. Take a look.
This is one from...
3-time Olympian Ryan Murphy is no stranger to the water.
So this was the 400 mixed medley relay from this past summer.
The 9-time Olympic medal winner has been swimming since he was a kid, and as a new father to his little girl Evie, he's eager to get her into the pool this summer to learn safe practices.
We're starting as early as 4 months old, so you can get babies in the water very, very young.
According to the National Institute of Health, taking part in formal swimming lessons can reduce the risk of drowning for children between 1 and 4 years old by up to 88%. Phoebe Purnell and Miles Orsher are both 3 years old and in swimming lessons at the Goldfish Swim School. Their parents got them enrolled young so they could learn safe pool practices.
It has been really important for us to make sure that she is comfortable and feels safe in the water. That's really the primary thing, not to make her, an Olympian.
Though the Olympics aren't necessarily the goal, Murphy says what these little ones are learning in the pool not only keeps them safe, but gives them a good training base.
As I watch the swim lessons, obviously the children are learning a life-saving skill, but they're also learning proper technique in the water.
Murphy says he got involved in swim safety after participating in his first Olympics in 2016. And the skills little ones are learning in the pool will help set them up for success if they have dreams of competing like him on the world stage. What was supposed to be an unforgettable night at prom turned into an unforgettable night of heroism for a trio of teens who helped alert a family to a garage on fire. Take a look.
Watch a group of high school prom goers in New York heroically alert a family to a raging garage fire.
Your house is on fire! Your house is on fire!
Aiden Kane and his friends were headed to an after-prom party when they say they spotted an orange glow they thought was a bonfire. But the teens quickly realized it was a garage fully engulfed in flames and ran to the house to alert a man and two girls still inside.
You guys gotta get out.
The group was able to get the family to safety before fire officials arrived to tackle the blaze. The family, who was not injured, says they are grateful for the teens' help, and WKTV reports the Maynard Fire Department took it a step further, calling the group heroes. Speaking of heroes, check out the daring actions of police in New Jersey who rushed to pull a driver from a vehicle stopped in the path of a speeding train. Police say the driver was impaired and unable to get out of the car on his own, so as the oncoming train's horn blared, officers pulled him from the vehicle mere moments before it was plowed into by the speeding locomotive. Yikes. Finally, another police vehicle interaction caught on camera in Australia was less harrowing and more just doggone dumbfounding. The Sunshine Coast Highway Patrol spotted a motorbike rider with a fairly large dog strapped upright to their chest. The officer cited the driver, saying even though the dog seemed content on the bike, and it certainly did, the crazy getup could place the rider, the pooch, or other motorists at risk. The department later shared the Rough Rider vid, saying, "We know how attached people are to their pets, but it's best to apply a pause-off approach on our roads."
Coming up, a federal court immediately blocks Secretary Kristi Noem's revocation of Harvard's International Student Program. Arlene Richards brings us the latest right after this break.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids. I was finally following my dreams. Just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, "Yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it." I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life. When you give $19 a month with your credit card, we'll send you this special t-shirt to show you're a part of our community of monthly donors.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor.
(911), where's your emergency?
I get shot in my back, friend, on an accident. Oh my God.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Chris Beers. Our top stories. President Trump addressing graduates at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. More on the president's remarks and his shifting defense policy. A federal court immediately blocked Secretary Kristi Noem's revocation of Harvard's International Student Program. Arlene Richards brings us the latest. Universal Studios opening its highly anticipated new theme park, Epic Universe, in Florida, the biggest attraction at the park.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump addressed graduates at West Point U.S. Military Academy, where the next generation of Army leaders is educated. He praised them for choosing a life of service and touted what he calls a golden age of the nation and the changes he's bringing to the military. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from West Point.
And you will become officers in the greatest and most powerful army the world has ever known.
Addressing over 1,000 graduating cadets at the U.S. Military Academy, the commander-in-chief stresses his peace through strength defense policy and doubles down on his push to get rid of DEI in the military.
The job of the U.S. Armed Forces is not to host drag shows, to transform foreign cultures, but to spread democracy to everybody around the world at the point of a gun.
President Trump in his first military commencement address since returning to office and calls for a shift from foreign wars to defending the homeland.
Gone are the days where defending every nation but our own was the primary thought. We are putting America first. A central purpose of our military is to protect our own borders.
And on inside the U.S. military,
there will be no more critical race theory or transgender for everybody forced onto our brave men and women in uniform.
In response to President Trump's order rolling back DEI programs, West Point has disbanded a dozen cadet clubs centered on gender, race, and sexuality. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has also ordered service academies like West Point to base admissions only on merit, not race, sex, or ethnicity.
We're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies.
The commander-in-chief also leaves the new second lieutenants with his own advice. Take the path you love, take risks, think big, and always hold on to culture and tradition.
Through every challenge and every battle, you'll stand strong, you'll work hard, you'll stay tough, and you will fight, 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 and win, win, win.
After the ceremony, Trump says he'll go back to work on Russia and China. And next Monday, Trump will participate in Memorial Day services at the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. That's to honor veterans and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Reporting from West Point, New York, Iris Tao, NTD News.
On Memorial Day, Americans across the country honor the sacrifice made by service members by going to cemeteries and monuments. But now there's a push to bring their stories closer to home. Here's more.
I'm walking towards the grave of Ellen Ainsworth. She's buried here in Plot C.
The final resting place of U.S. Army 2nd Lieutenant Ellen Ainsworth is far from her hometown of Glenwood City, Wisconsin. But the World War II Army nurse still draws visitors at Cicely Rome American Cemetery.
So as we take this sand and rub this across her name, for a family member, it creates this physical and emotional connection.
Cicely Rome American Cemetery, about 40 miles south of Rome, is one of the cemeteries administered by the American Battle Monuments Commission, which maintains monuments to more than 200,000 of the nation's fallen heroes outside of the United States, including the sites like Paris and Normandy.
They are powerful sites of remembrance that are an incredible place to visit and honor the dead of World War I and World War II. However, our audience is the American people, and many Americans will never get the chance to physically journey to one of our cemeteries.
The American Battle Monuments Commission has now partnered with the Department of Veterans Affairs to bring the stories of these service members closer to home, using the VA's Digital Veterans Legacy Memorial.
These American heroes deserve to be remembered and their stories to be told just as any other veteran or service member.
Launched in 2019, VA Program Officer James LaPaglia says the digital database is intended to make the stories of every U.S. veteran more interactive, more vivid, and more accessible.
We wanted to take the cemetery experience beyond the confines of a gate or a cemetery wall.
With their data, the VA has created online memorial pages for more than 10 million U.S. service members in VA and VA grant-funded cemeteries, Department of Defense cemeteries like Arlington National Cemetery, and other sites like the cemeteries abroad. Family members, friends, and the public can submit photos and mementos to populate each page and share a veteran's story. Like Ainsworth's, which ended in February 1944 in Italy. While her hospital was under attack, she moved her patients to safety and died from her own injuries days later. A story Mark Ireland, superintendent of the Cicely Rome American Cemetery, says still inspires.
That idea of, fighting till the very end, not giving up.
And is just one of many to be honored by generations to come.
What are the major changes in regards to student loans included in the budget reconciliation bill recently approved by the Budget Committee? NTD's Carrie Dunst spoke to Aaron Boxer, CEO of Diversified Educated Services, for insight.
What are the major changes in student loans from before?
It's good to be here. Well, for the first time in years, it's going to put some brakes on some unchecked government spending and hold failing systems accountable. Higher education has been very bloated. It's overpriced and it's been unaccountable for decades. And this bill finally says if you're taking taxpayer money, you'd better deliver results. So the outcry isn't about students, it's about institutions losing their blank check.
Now, what are these income-driven repayment plans specifically, and how do they change under the new plan?
Well, it's about pushing people into loans previously that they couldn't repay and weren't able to pay off. So these subsidized loans were a Band-Aid for a broken system, and the focus is going to be more on value and cutting tuition, expanding trade and workforce programs, and making colleges accountable for outcomes. And it's giving people a pause on some of the interest while they dig deeper into a debt hole that that's basically not compassion, it's a trap. So what they're doing is loan forgiveness is going to be based on where you work, not what value you're bringing in. So it just hasn't been a smart policy, and it distorts the job market and rewards bureaucratic job titles, not actual service or effectiveness. So if we want to support these public servants, pay them better up front, but don't use the federal loan system as a backdoor subsidy for these specific sectors.
What you're saying makes a ton of sense, where people are getting into these loans, but maybe they get a degree where there's no way to pay that back outside of 4 or even 5 decades. But what does the transition look like, where you have this wheel in motion, where people are counting on, going to these college programs, Does the money just dry up, or how do we make that switch?
Right. This is what reform looks like when you stop worrying about hurt feelings and start focusing on results. So the same people that were calling this political are the ones who defended $100,000 gender study degrees and $50,000 a year in student loans for part-time attendance. And so we're trying to empower students so when they get out of college, they're not going to be burdened by this debt, but also incentivize them to, when they go to school, to maximize its effectiveness. And so when they leave, again, they're not burdened, but there are also some common sense solutions for them when they wind up leaving college.
Now, what types of education is currently available to help students make these good financial decisions, related to the risk of the debt that they're contemplating and the reward of the degree that they intend to invest in?
Right. Well, you don't fix a broken system by wiping the scoreboard. So student loan debt exists because colleges are charging too much, and the government backs it no matter what. So if you're canceling debt rewards, it's not the student. It's basically, if you want to fix it, you got to cap borrowing, cut federal aid to failing programs, and then force colleges to have skin in the game. If they're confident in their degrees, then let them guarantee the loans. So we have to stop the bleeding, end this open-ended forgiveness, streamline payments into a simple, predictable system, and say, if you borrow, repay, but with clarity and fairness. It also ends loopholes that let people delay repayment for years. It's not really about being cruel. It's just about being realistic. And responsibility needs to be taught, just like math. And that's what we have to start with. And it's how we lend the money. It's very important.
So, Aaron, let's say you've been asked advice by a parent who doesn't have any money to send their kid to school, but their kid is a good student. What advice do you give them so that they can, maximize their educational potential while also doing it, as economically responsibly as possible?
That's a great question. My suggestion is always live within your means. You know what you're signing up for. If you want to take out a loan, understand what the consequences of taking out that loan are. We have kids, 18-year-old kids, who sometimes take out loans that could basically buy a house. A lot of people will say, what is your big expense? And we talk about, our mortgage or rent, car payments. You know what the biggest expense that most people have are taxes, right? So yes, it's really important to go to college and choose the right degree. And maybe that means going to community college for 2 years and paying right out of pocket. And also, when you choose a major, majoring in gender studies and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on that, what does that really do for one in the future? So it's really important to evaluate, what are your goals? You could always change your mind, but the most important thing is, if you're going to take out a loan, you're going to have to pay that back. And the days of signing blank checks from a democratic form of government is over. We have Republicans in office right now, and they are fiscally conservative. We have fiscal watchdogs. And so it is more important than ever to really make sure that what you put out there is something that you can afford to pay back in the future. And choosing a major that will pay for that is also very important.
Next, Indiana and Iowa on Friday joined Nebraska in banning the purchases of candy and soda through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins gave the two states the go-ahead, which will happen in 2026. The governor of Indiana said the state's proud to be a leader in the Make America Healthy Again initiative and that it's bringing SNAP back to its intended purpose, nutrition. The governor of Iowa cited soaring obesity rates in the announcement, saying change is needed to promote healthy eating and to protect future generations from diseases. Secretary Rollins added in the announcement that SNAP recipients were able to buy anything except hot foods and non-food items like tobacco with the taxpayer-funded program. More states are expected to ban soda and candy from SNAP. Coming up, a federal court immediately blocks Secretary Kristi Noem's revocation of Harvard's International Student Program. Arlene Richards brings us the latest right after the break. The CDC has confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 variant linked to rising infections in parts of Asia. What we know about the variant that's driving new outbreaks abroad. More in just a moment, right here on NTD News Today.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids. I was finally following my dreams. Just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life. When you give $19 a month with your credit card, we'll send you this special t-shirt to show you're a part of our community of monthly donors.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? The Monumental Savings Event is happening right now. Save big on our newest arrivals. We have hundreds of sofas with styles you love at unbeatable prices. Like this one. At just $5.99, you can enjoy this contemporary sofa by Ashley, complete with 5 accent pillows. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and free delivery. So don't miss out on the Monumental Savings Event happening at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Welcome back to NTD. Elon Musk announced he will return to working around the clock at his companies. That includes X, XAI, Tesla, and SpaceX. This comes after a major outage on his social media platform, X. It affected tens of thousands of users globally. The outage peaked yesterday with over 25,000 reporting issues as of 8 a.m. Eastern Time today. The outage reports have dropped to less than 80. Musk said operational improvements are needed and emphasized the importance of staying focused, especially with a critical SpaceX Starship launch approaching. Musk recently indicated he would scale back his political involvement and spending. Musk said he thinks he's done enough following his investments into key races, including last year's presidential election. A federal court on Friday blocked the Trump administration's revocation of Harvard's International Student Exchange Program. A day before, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that she revoked the program over Harvard's failure to comply with federal law. Here's more on the dispute between the Trump administration and Harvard University.
In a quick turnaround on Friday, Harvard University immediately filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration hours after having its student exchange privileges revoked. And immediately, a federal court has blocked the revocation.
Well, it's not unexpected. We've seen that with pretty much everything that Donald Trump's administration has done. Within a day or two, someone is seeking and usually getting an injunction.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem informed the university in a letter on Thursday that she was revoking their international student program immediately. The school claims in its lawsuit that the move is politically motivated in retaliation against them for exercising their free speech rights. Noem says in her letter that the school has refused to comply with multiple requests for foreign student misconduct information that could render them removable, and that the school is perpetuating an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students. Attorney Gerard Filitti says the school has a good faith basis to argue that the administration should have provided notice of a change in what it was asking for. But he says the First Amendment argument isn't related to the government's action.
Well, Harvard's argument is that the First Amendment protects it and allows it to bring into the country whomever it wants, that's a speech issue, that it can't compel the university, the government can't compel the university which students it can or can't accept. Ultimately, though, there's a difference between speech and the ability of the government to regulate immigration. The government has a right to reject people from entering the country. So that's why Harvard's First Amendment claim may not ultimately be that successful, because Harvard cannot supersede the U.S. government when it comes to who is allowed into the country.
But Harvard is pushing back. They say this latest action is designed to coerce Harvard into complying with the government's preferred viewpoints on admissions, hiring, and academic programs. Filitti says some of Harvard's arguments could gain traction.
Harvard is essentially making three arguments. The first two are process, that this violates their due process rights and that this violates the Administrative Procedures Act. Those are the arguments that are more likely than not to get some traction, because this is an unannounced change. Arguably, this is something different than the way that this provision had been enforced previously.
Harvard had argued in its papers that the law requires the administration to follow certain procedures for revoking a school's certification, including fair notice and an opportunity to respond. Noem said Harvard's response to requests for information were insufficient and that they shouldn't be surprised by the revocation. The revocation impacts about a quarter of Harvard's total enrollment. Its international student enrollment is among the largest in the United States. But now that the federal court has blocked the revocation, students are temporarily unaffected. In other federal scrutiny of college policies, the Civil Rights Office of Health and Human Services announced on Thursday that Columbia University violated the Civil Rights Act. It states in a notice of violation that the university deliberately acted with indifference toward student harassment of Jewish students from October 7, 2023 to the present, and says the notice is part of a broader effort by the administration's multi-agency joint task force to combat anti-Semitism. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
President Donald Trump took to Truth Social today to criticize foreign countries for contributing, quote, nothing toward the cost of educating their own students at Harvard and other U.S. universities. Here's what he wrote. The Trump questioned why nearly a third of Harvard's students come from abroad and some from countries not friendly to the U.S., yet their governments pay nothing toward tuition. He suggested Americans were never told this and asked why taxpayers are footing the bill. He also called for Harvard to be more transparent about who these students are and said the school should rely on its $52 billion endowment instead of federal grants. Next, House lawmakers are demanding answers from Harvard. The esteemed university partners with sanctioned groups linked to the Chinese Communist Party's genocide against Uyghurs and forced organ harvesting. In a Monday letter to the university president, they requested documents and testimony from him by June 2nd. To discuss this, NTD's Tiffany Meyer was joined by Sarah Parshall-Perry, Vice President and Legal Fellow at Defending Education.
At heart is the accusation that Harvard trained members of the sanctioned paramilitary organization XPCC, a primary implementer of the CCP's genocide against the Uyghurs. First, how are you reading this whole situation?
Well, I have to tell you, it's incredibly damning for Harvard University, which is already facing quite a bit of federal investigation and federal interest, both from the Department of Education and the Department of Justice. But now what we're seeing from members of Congress is a revelation of jaw-dropping proportions. And this partnership with the XPCC, who is the primary implementer of genocide against 1.8 million Uyghur Muslims in the CCP, is really something to behold. Not only does it talk about some of the research that is transpiring, and this is research funded by an agent of an Iranian organization, the Iranian government itself, hosting and training members of other organizations who are China-based academics on policies related to scientific methods for organ harvesting. Now, that's particularly problematic considering the fact that we know organ harvesting is among the multitude of civil rights and human rights abuses transpiring against Uyghur Muslims and other ethnic minorities in the CCP. So why use a China-based academic to perform research on organ harvesting? It really does boggle the mind. Some of this research for China-based academics was transpiring specifically to increase paramilitary application and aircraft safety. I don't think we want a stated communist party and one of the SDP persons of interest listed under federal law as being an organization to watch because of their affiliation with the CCP. I don't think we want them doing research in a military capacity, and yet that's exactly what seems to be happening.
Expanding on that, if Harvard is found to have violated these sanctions, what is next for Harvard?
Well, Harvard, first of all, could lose its tax-exempt status because what it's doing right now is using Department of Defense funding, DARPA funding, as it's called, to be able to funnel much of this research dollar spending through China, to be able to receive a lot of these sort of particular purported academic research projects. That partnership with a known state agent of a communist country is something that's going to be, I think, something worth investigating on the Department of Justice's account and even the Department of Defense, who is going to be very concerned about what seem to be potential violations of national security interests in this academic partnership.
And Sarah, in the letter, the lawmakers called for comprehensive records of Harvard's dealings with sanctioned Chinese entities, full details on events involving CCP-linked affiliates, and disclosures of any CCP-sourced gifts or donations. Harvard has acknowledged getting the letter, but it hasn't commented on the specifics. Given the scope of the letter's requests and Harvard's recent tensions with the administration, do you expect this investigation to drag out or a quick resolution?
This, I think, is going to drag out just like the other investigations have thus far. It's clear that Harvard is staking a claim and it wants to make sure it can continue to operate under business as usual. Well, that is not the MO, the modus operandi of this administration. And they want to make very sure that for benefit of enjoying tax-exempt status, the dollars that are being spent by American taxpayers are not going to fund terrorist organizations or paramilitary organizations based in SDP nations, which are hostile to American interests. This is something that's going to drag on for a long time. The list of documentation requested by the 3 GOP members of Congress is extensive. It's going to require Harvard to go back to the drawing board and provide some very difficult explanations for why exactly it is in bed with this organization.
A lot to watch for sure. Sarah Parshall-Perry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on, the CDC has confirmed it's detected positive cases of a COVID-19 variant reportedly tied to rising cases in parts of Asia. The CDC confirmed to Fox News Digital that it's found fewer than 20 cases in the U.S. A health agency spokesperson said it hasn't met the threshold for inclusion in its online COVID data tracker. A report from the University of Minnesota says the NB181 variant is driving new waves in some Asian locations. However, the Epoch Times reports that one of China's leading epidemiologists says the dominant strain there is Omicron XDV. On Friday, the CDC reported that the amount of respiratory illnesses causing people to seek healthcare is currently low, including for the seasonal flu, COVID, and RSV. Next, mass protests are breaking out in several regions of China this month. They're fueled by a long list of grievances as angry Chinese protesters are seen clashing with police officers. Take a look.
In northern China's Hebei province, close to Beijing, thousands of villagers began a protest in front of local officials on Sunday. All of them had been forced to relocate after local authorities demolished their homes and took the land to build a state-owned airport. Now, resentment is bubbling over. The villagers took to the streets, voicing their dissatisfaction with the small apartments they were placed in as compensation. The protest has continued for more than a week. Over in southern China's Guangdong province, construction workers packed the office of one residential compound, complaining about overdue paychecks. The protest continued from daytime into the night, with multiple workers even sleeping on the floor in the office. In the aftermath of sky-high trade tariffs between the U.S. and China, exporters are also protesting slowed business conditions. Hundreds of merchants in western China's Xinjiang region gathered over the weekend. That's to demand refunds for the fees they paid to set up booths at a trade fair when the event proved unprofitable. Some of them reported that among 300 merchants, only 3 orders were secured across the entire fair. Police were sent to surround the protesters. A number of other protests also sparked last week. In one case, hundreds of unemployed workers gathered in front of a state building in northern China last Thursday, demanding social benefits they were entitled to, but that had been delayed. Another protest was held by victims of investment fraud. In central China, hundreds of people were seen clashing with police officers on Wednesday. They said their hard-earned savings had been stolen after a company's executives conned them and disappeared with their investment money. Social unrest is rising across the board inside China. It's spurred on by poor economic conditions and suffering under the Chinese regime. We'll keep you updated as the situation develops.
Coming up, people are putting extra strain on their lives, sometimes without even realizing it. Poor diets, lack of exercise, alcohol, and even some viral infections can all take a toll. So what can you eat and drink to keep your liver healthy? We'll have that and more after the break.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you will also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris. Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Time to talk health. Your liver performs more than 500 vital functions, from helping fight infections to regulating blood sugar and cholesterol. Worldwide, it seems like this vital organ is under heavy strain, due in part to unhealthy diets, sedentary lifestyles, alcohol use, and viral infections. NTD's Stephania Cox spoke with naturopath Sheridan Genrich for tips on what to eat and drink to support a healthy liver.
Sheridan, great to have you on. What are those foods to start with?
Thanks for having me, Steph. Well, yeah, awareness of what could be making your liver work harder and making you feel worse is really the key first step. So the 3 top things to avoid if you want good liver health would be fried foods, sugary drinks, and the third one would be sauces or dressings made on seed oils. So I can cover these in detail.
Yeah, these actually seem pretty prevalent. Throughout an average day, you'd be consuming a few of these. How can you work on avoiding them in a way that's not too painful?
Yeah, knowing there's choices when you're eating out or you're buying different products. So I saw, for example, sweet potato fries, and it's a vegetable, so that could be healthy, or gluten-free chicken. But because these are starches fried with a protein, they can contribute to something called advanced glycation end products. And these burden not only the liver, but they can lead to wrinkles, because basically it's making the protein sticky with sugar. And that's in a simple way of explaining it, but it's really not a health food. So the better way is to have them baked or cooked in avocado oil or olive oil, but it's hard to find when you eat out. The other one is the sugary drinks, like they're prevalent everywhere. And it could be even masked as a health food drink, or your coffees, flavored drinks, even juice. Excessive amounts of juice without the fiber attached is going to not only make you not feel full, but it can actually contribute to the excess on the liver. And then the sauces, the seed oils and dressings, they are really inflammatory and very, very difficult to find an olive oil or avocado oil or coconut oil. But there are more products coming out, but you just have more control when you're at home versus when you're eating out.
And is sugar the common theme here, or blood sugar, or it's a different issue on each of these points?
Yeah, well, to understand the impact on the liver, really, to know it's the ultimate filter for the body. The liver is filtering not only the foods that we eat, but the medications, the chemicals in our environment, and it's burdened. So think of it like your kitchen sink. If it starts to not drain very well, it's building up. And this is what the liver, if you want to be able to have a good flowing system, it's really not to burden the liver too much. The sugars are probably the number one most easy to make the liver work harder. Alcohol would probably even go before that. Alcohol is a poison, a toxin that the body wants to get rid of. So no matter how healthy your diet is, alcohol will take first place if it enters the body, because it needs to be the body wants to get rid of it. And so then it's going to look at metabolizing other things.
So we're looking at going for more whole foods, more direct from the source, say fresh juices, your own coffee, or more coffee without sugar, perhaps. Olive oils.
Yes. Yeah. And fiber. So my preference, if people like juice and it's summertime, then would be looking at smoothies. So having the fiber attached is going to make you feel full for longer. It's going to slow down that sugar burn, and it's just going to, it's going to be a lot healthier for your blood sugar to stabilize. No extremes. The body does not like high or low blood sugar. So it's always trying to keep you in balance. And the liver is one of the first places, like fructose will go go directly to the liver and just make it extra burdened. So keeping that with fiber or fat attached is really a good step.
Okay, and what else can folks do to protect the liver?
Yeah, less burden on it. If people are on medications, and obviously that's part of their plan with their doctor, that's totally still good just to be able to keep a healthy diet, because you can't remove everything. The chemicals that you have at home, you could maybe look at swapping them, cleaning products or cosmetics for cleaner sources. So it's just going to have a less accumulative effect. That's less burden means more protection for the liver, so it can work more efficiently. And then all your healthy foods, green leafy vegetables, clean proteins, just noticing what you can through ingredients. And the more cooking you can do at home, the more control over what you have to be able to see what's really in your food and make a difference.
Yeah, and considering the price of food takeout, especially right now, it's beneficial on many fronts if you've got the time and the means to make it home. All right.
Yeah, definitely. And stir frying or grilling, if you're eating out, looking for those options is still giving you a lot more control, and just limiting the sauce or having it on the side. So that's the key point.
Great tips. Thank you so much. Will do.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me, Steph.
Sheridan Jenrich. Good to speak with you.
It's the most common cancer in the U.S. Every year, around 6 million people are treated for skin cancer. And health officials say the number of new cases continues to grow. But early detection can save lives. Here's more.
In the U.S., there are 3 most common types of skin cancer: basal cell and squamous cell carcinomas, which are typically treatable, and melanoma, which is much more deadly.
The earlier you find and diagnose and detect a cancer, the higher the cure rate will be from the cancer.
Dr. Shane Dormady with El Camino Health says up to 95% of skin cancers are curable, but knowing the warning signs is critical. He says the letters A, B, C, D, E can help you remember the red flags. A is for asymmetry. If a spot isn't a perfect circle or has an odd shape, get it checked. B is for border. Beware of a spot that's not sharply defined. C is for color.
Anything that is really dark, black or purplish, or of course bleeding, is a major warning sign and needs to be checked out immediately by a physician.
D is for diameter. Dormady says if a spot is larger than the diameter of a pencil eraser, see a doctor. Finally, E is for evolution.
If the color's changing, if something's getting bigger, that's worrisome for a skin cancer.
Dormady says if you spot a warning sign, see a doctor. He says anyone with a personal history of skin cancer should see a dermatologist every 3 months. Those with a family history should get skin checked by a doctor every 6 months. And everyone should get a skin screening from a board-certified dermatologist at least once per year.
Coming up, Universal Studios opening its highly anticipated new theme park, Epic Universe in Florida. The biggest attraction at the park when we come back.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it.
Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you.
But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me.
Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives.
You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S. That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift. I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. What'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. Good. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
Welcome back. Universal Studios opened its highly anticipated new theme park, Epic Universe, in Florida on Thursday. The first new addition to Orlando's theme park scene in more than 25 years. Here's more.
These wings will give you a dragon-sized view of Mercury. No dragons required.
Oh my God! How to Train Your Dragon stars Nico Parker, Mason Thames, and Gerard Butler got a preview of the Isle of Berk at Epic Universe. The new Universal Orlando Resort Park features more than 50 experiences across 5 themed worlds, including the one tied to How to Train Your Dragon, which opens in theaters June 13th. Kieran Culkin has joined the cast of Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping. The Oscar winner will appear as Caesar Flickerman, played in the original 4 films by Stanley Tucci. The prequel is due in theaters November 20th, 2026.
Ever feel like there's too much to do and never enough time? New research shows 66% of American workers are experiencing some level of burnout. In this preview of Vital Signs with Brendan Fallon, mental health counselor and holistic health expert Dr. Margaret Trey shares how to recognize the warning signs and what you can do to recover.
Burnout, particularly due to work stress, is a pervasive social phenomenon. If you hadn't had some brush with it yourself, then it's almost certain that you know someone who has. My guest today has had years of observing this phenomenon through her work and in aiding individuals facing burnout. Dr. Margaret Trey holds a PhD in counseling, has undertaken research into holistic healing of mind and body, and has authored several books on the topic. Together we'll explore whether we're now more prone to burnout than before, and why. We'll identify the warning signs of burnout, and we'll start to look at ways to deal with this situation. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthy from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendan Fallon. Margaret, so great to have you join us on Vital Signs today. To start with, I'm interested, I know this can be very heavy work, the kind of work that you're doing as a counselor, dealing with people facing different life pressures, facing things like burnout due to work and school pressure, all kinds of things. What's the first thing that would tell you that you're having trouble yourself and that maybe you need to take a step back and be a bit more gentler to yourself?
I think one of the first things that I would notice for myself is I'm feeling a bit exhausted and tired, and I'm skipping some meals, and there are many things for me to do, and I'm not sure which one to start. And then I realize, hey, this is not good. I didn't have lunch, and now it's dinner time, and I'm a bit tired, and mentally I am feeling rather exhausted. And this would go on for several days. And then I realized, hang on, this is not right, because it's also affecting me from doing well in what I am supposed to be doing during the day. And it takes a longer time for me to recover. Like I have clients telling me they sleep for a long time, but the next day when they wake up, they are still feeling tired and lacking energy. Generally speaking, when you have burnout, the first thing we notice about ourselves is that we lack energy. Kind of life feels listless. And then we realize the outcome, our productivity is also reduced. And in some cases then, emotionally we will be affected and we kind of felt negative and sometimes even cynical.
When you say that about productivity, I think there's this concept of workaholism that I can relate to very closely, in that work kind of becomes something that brings sometimes an unhealthy reward. And I see it sometimes the way that I've worked in the past. I try to do this less nowadays, but there seems to be a clear connection or a relationship between the way that I've worked in the past and the way that some people will use drugs or use alcohol. I guess in a healthy situation, you are getting a reward from working well and getting your work done. And I guess this ties into physiological effects like a dopamine release or whatever when you're completing your work. But I've experienced how that can have a negative side to it, where perhaps you're not looking after yourself very well and you're putting too much pressure on yourself and you're chasing that dopamine hit from the work to try and make yourself feel better, and it starts to cycle.
Yes, it's definitely a cycle. And when you are in the middle of it, it is very hard to slow down, Even though my mind would tell me, okay, slow down. And I have to train my mind to actually slow down. And because of my own past training, I do have some strategies to do. Okay, I'm eating. I'm sitting, walking. And so I try to bring myself to the moment and tell myself, okay, what do I need to do now? And I slow down. I try my best to slow down. And this is the same thing that I would share with my clients. Usually they don't see it happening. And when they do, then we will look at strategies. And the first thing is, when they come to see me, they always ask me, tell me what to do. And then I would usually put it back in their hands and ask them, well, you have many years of experience. You have come a long way in life. Tell me what has worked for you.
I can see that being very important, to kind of reinforce the person's own toolkit, their own strategies that they've worked out themselves through life to deal with that situation. To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
Next, the transition from school to summer break can be challenging for some students. But for those on the autism spectrum, changes in routine can be overwhelming. As we inch closer to the end of the school year, we have some tips to help children on the autism spectrum adjust to summer.
This is one from...
Three-time Olympian Ryan Murphy is no stranger to the water.
So this was the 400 mixed medley relay from this past summer.
The 9-time Olympic medal winner has been swimming since he was a kid, and as a new father to his little girl Evie, he's eager to get her into the pool this summer to learn safe practices.
We're starting as early as 4 months old, so you can get babies in the water very, very young.
According to the National Institute of Health, taking part in formal swimming lessons can reduce the risk of drowning for children between 1 and 4 years old by up to 88%. Phoebe Purnell and Miles Orsher are both 3 years old and in swimming lessons at the Goldfish Swim School. Their parents got them enrolled young so they could learn safe pool practices.
It has been really important for us to make sure that she is comfortable and feels safe in the water. That's really the primary thing, not to make her, an Olympian.
Though the Olympics aren't necessarily the goal, Murphy says what these little ones are learning in the pool not only keeps them safe, but gives them a good training base.
As I watch the swim lessons, obviously the children are learning a life-saving skill, but they're also learning proper technique in the water.
If you're celebrating the holiday weekend at the pool, lake, or beach, experts urge you or your family to stay safe. Every year in the U.S., there are more than 4,000 1,000 unintentional drowning deaths. But drowning is preventable. A doctor talks about how to keep kids safe while swimming this summer.
From the classroom to the living room, some students love summer break, but for others, the change can be harder.
When we're thinking about individuals or children with autism, the hard thing about summer break is that, kids really love structure.
Psychologist Bianca Brooks with the Marcus Autism Center says school provides a routine that can be important for individuals or children on the autism spectrum. And sometimes summer can be unpredictable and vary week by week. She says parents can help their child adjust by creating a visual or picture summer schedule of day-to-day activities. Experts say if you plan to travel, plan ahead. Prepare the child for different sights, sounds, or smells. Maybe watch a YouTube video or try role-playing so they can see what to expect. And create a signal for the child so that they can let you know when they need a break. And if you know there will be long lines where you're going, bring items that can help occupy them.
Kind of having a little bit of like a Mary Poppins bag or a bag of tricks to kind of make that time a little bit more like fun and structured.
Brooks says for those with sensory issues, bring headphones and sunglasses when you leave the house. And finally, give yourself grace when things get off track.
You only have your kid at that age for that specific summer. So just, embrace it and, watch them have fun and use it all as just a learning experience of growing together.
Dr. Plumley says children with special needs have a significantly higher risk of drowning. So he says, all right, we're going to skip that. That's all for today's news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.